Yeah!
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Spear from the Past. You had me a fun one today. I know I said on the last episode we're talking about TLC 2015, but it's not on Netflix for me yet, and I've tried finding it at other places, but I couldn't find it. Eventually, I'll find it. I may have to buy it to cover, but so that's back on the wheel. But I just did it, called an audible, and I spun the wheel again, and got Extreme Rules 2015, which is there. And so yeah, we're here to about this. I've got Jacob Cameron here. Jacob, how's it going?
It's going good, Malcolm. I always love being on Spear from the Past. It gives me an excuse to watch some old wrestling, which I mean, this show is over a decade old, which just messes with my head. But there you go. I guess we can call this an old show now, but it gives me an excuse to watch like old wrestling, which is something I really enjoy.
Yeah. And one thing I started doing last week that I'm going to continue doing is this small segment called On this Day of May the 19th, 2015. So I went through various things, pop culture, and found out um, interesting things from what was like number one in the box office and song wise. The number one movie of on the day this pay per view aired was Star Trek Into Darkness. The number one song on the Billboard Hot 100 was Can't Hold Us by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. The number one song in the UK was Get Lucky by Daft Punk. And the number one album was Golden by Lady Antebellum.
I still have "Can't Hold Us" on my running playlist. That song is really good. But Star Trek Into Darkness is a curious beast, and I know this is a wrestling show, so I'm not going to go too deep into those weeds here. But I really liked Cumberbatch in that movie, but I don't know. It's due for a rewatch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the few people that don't mind Star Trek Into Darkness myself, but moving on, it's time to get into Extreme Rules 2015. And this is one of the other ones that this one had a pre-show, so I don't expect the guests to watch pre-show. I always watch it for myself because I want to watch every match that was done on it. And I'm pretty sure I did watch this live as well. But the opening match, the pre-show match, read The Miz versus Cody Rhodes. Which seeing The Miz on a pre-show where I think he was like champion, like a WWE champion, like a year or so before this, I believe.
He won
So
it.
seeing it,
He won it on a Raw episode in 2010. He lost it at Extreme Rules 2011. So it's a year and change, but we're still coming off of like it's still fairly recent. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, no. But I mean, the fact that like he goes from being like WWE champion to pre-show is a really big switch around. But not that I'm saying it was like straight hammers, like just sitting on the pre. I mean, the match itself, it was decent. Like, there's nothing to write home about. But it was a pre-show match. Like Miz and Cody Rhodes were having fun and doing their thing. But we move into the main show. The first match we had was Chris Jericho versus Fandango, or JDC as you may know him now. But look, I always enjoyed Fandango, especially with his entrance with Summer Rae and that. But it was. I have his theme song on my Spotify that I listen to quite a lot. It's one of the rare theme songs that WWE have not taken down because the star was no longer on WWE anymore. But the match itself, like it was surprisingly pretty good. And yeah, I really enjoyed. Like it was Chris Jericho and all that getting the usual moves and that, but it was still a fun match and fun way to open the show. But Jacob, what do you think of Jericho versus Fandango?
It was decent. I liked it for what it was. I'm kind of biased in that I've Chris Jericho is one of my all-time favorites. Like he's definitely in my all-time favorite status. Like people love to like dunk on him nowadays, and I can understand why. But for me, he's just been so versatile his entire career, and I was just shocked that he ended up losing the match of Mania against Fandango, which I mean, like I remember hearing the result of that. I'm like, wow, that actually happened, and sure enough, it did. So this was decent. It's weird that I guess it's a case of the gum lost its flavor, which is why Fandango didn't really go beyond a certain level. But it seems like JDC, as he's known nowadays, is still doing pretty well for himself. So good on him for that. The match itself was just okay. It was a nice little warm up. Nothing really out there.
Yeah, and I will say it was cool when JC made the return WWE on NXT a few weeks ago, and they came back out to the Fandango music. And I thought that was a cool thing to add in there. I can't wait to see the Hardys back this week too. Um, but next up we had a interview with Josh Matthews interviewing Sheamus and asking him about the strap match. It was a standard backstage interview, which didn't weird like. I'll get into it when we get to the match in a bit. Because I don't like the idea of the strap matches, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I'm gonna second you on that, but we'll get to that.
But straight after that, would be the next match we go to was Dean Ambrose versus Kofi Kingston for the US title. And it was fun seeing like Shields era Dean Ambrose. He was always fun, and it was one of those ones like when you saw all three coming down. It's like you thought, oh, like I remember, it was like I think I did watch this. I remember watching. Was like, oh, shit, it's going to end up in a DQ because of the Shield members are going to interfere somehow, but they didn't. But the Kofi Kingston this year was always a lot of fun. Like once again, hearing his old music again, brought back memories. But yeah, the match. I thought the match itself was pretty solid. Like they did. It's one of those ones I don't have a lot of notes for it. But this is also read was like the commentary was always bringing in these facts like, oh yeah, insert wrestler here was undefeated at Extreme Rules pay-per-views, but apparently Kofi Kingston was one of those people.
Michael Cole does that more than once on this show.
Oh yeah, but Jacob, what are your thoughts about Dean Ambrose versus Kofi Kingston?
I'm with you, Malcolm. I love like Kofi Kingston's another one of my favorites. Like when my first wrestling show ever was Mania 25 in 09, and he did stuff in that Money in the Bank ladder match that was like, you're the coolest guy I've ever seen in my life. The New Day, I mean, is like an all-timer tag team, and he'll never go back to that. Never go back to being the Jamaican Kofi Kingston, but a part of me kind of wishes maybe he did for like one night, maybe just for the nostalgia of it all. But that doesn't change the fact that Kofi Kingston's awesome. He always has been, and he always will be. This match was good. It's still eternally weird for me to see Dean Ambrose because he's Jon Moxley now, and he's like where he is now. Like at the time, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to him now that he's left? And like now, like he's AEW champion, and like that storyline aside, he's doing pretty well for himself. But he's been Jon Moxley for so long that I'm in the period of like, he was Dean Ambrose once upon a time, wasn't he? And like he's so that guy now that I just always forget he was part of the Shield.
Yeah, I don't think it was that long after this pay-per-view because I think he left WWE shortly after Extreme Rules. Like I think it would have been about a few years after this, wasn't it, or was it longer than?
He left in 2019, just after Mania that year.
All right.
Yeah, because I distinctly remember he got slammed through a table by Bobby Lashley, and then no wait, no, it was 19. I was right. I was right. He got slammed through a table by Lashley. That was the last. That was his last appearance, and then he was in New Japan, and the rest is history.
Yeah. But then next up we've got Sheamus versus Mark Henry in a strap match. And yeah, strap matches as a gimmick. I've said this before, but this is not the first strap match I've encountered while doing Spear from the past. I've had the same thing to say about him. It's one of those ones which it's this bizarre concept where it's really very little wrestling. It's just pulling if someone the other wrestler to all four corners and get them in that one. And I this is one of those ones I get it, like they were building up Sheamus to be this Irish man, and it was like, oh yeah, he's not going to drag this big dude like Mark Henry around the ring and all that. And so I'm pretty sure in one of the backstage segments or more up this that showed Sheamus like pulling like two trucks behind him or something. um, but the matches four strap matches. It was okay. Like they managed to get a bit few wrestling moves in, but it's one of the I still don't like the concept. But Jacob, what do you think of Sheamus versus Mark Henry?
In general, strap matches, like I like the conceit of it all. Like you hate someone so much that you're like forced to be tied like to them, and it's just like there's no escape. I like that aspect of it all. The thing that I don't like is when they have to do the corners. They have to be like touch all four corners in order to win. I think a
Yeah,
strap match is better when they have to like get a pin or a submission, like Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine, or Fiend and Daniel Bryan at Royal Rumble 2020. Like when they eschew the whole touch, like that thing, I think it can be great. I'll throw chain matches in there as well because, they're, they're kind of similar. So I feel like with this one, I always forget that, that for me, Sheamus has been like such a weird career. Like they even acknowledge it as like he's had like a backwards career. He started out WWE champion, and then like it kind of went here, and now he's like really well respected and good on him for it. But this is just a weird pairing because like this isn't even Hall of Pain Mark Henry, like the best Mark Henry. Like he's just coming off of that. And Sheamus isn't even close to where like his prime would be. So it's like he's just coming off of the world title reign that nobody liked. So this was just very odd. Like and like you were talking about the strap match stipulation, I thought it was okay. It was weird. There's a moment before the match starts where Henry throws a part of the strap to Sheamus and he's like, "You're mine now." And then he's like, "I don't want this." And Sheamus kicks it away. I'm like, that's the part where you symbolically pick it up and put it on your wrist. Like, be like, I'm not backing down. I don't know. That was a weird choice.
yeah. Um, but um, but moving on from that, we had a backstage segment with the AJ Lee and Caitlyn just attacking each other, which didn't really go anywhere because like it's typically for these backstage segments like they'll randomly start to match or something on the same pay-per-view, but it was just a backstage segment that was there. I don't know if it ever. I'd imagine it went anywhere because I think Agent Lee and Caitlyn were feuding at this time, but it's just one of those weird backstage segments that they throw on a pay-per-view, which doesn't really do anything on the actual show.
I mean, it's
And
always
then
nice to
moving in,
see AJ.
yeah. um, but next up we have Alberto Del Rio versus Jack Swagger in an I Quit match for the number one contendership for the World Heavyweight Championship. And Zeb Coulter is the guy I forgot exists. um, and just watching it's like, oh yeah, this guy's like, it's one of those ones like, it does make me wonder what Zeb Coulter would think of Donald Trump's America.
I was gonna say, I was thinking to myself, if they did this today, we would never hear the end of it. This was 2013. Like this was like just a way different time. I was thinking to myself, this is so bizarre. Like, it feels like a gimmick out of time almost.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this whole match is just kind of problematic in certain aspects. Like, you got Alberto Del Rio, who's just a reprehensible human being, and make no mistake. And then, like, Jack Swagger, who I personally never enjoyed. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Never met him. I don't want to assume, but just he never impressed me, like, in the slightest. And this match certainly did not help things.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones like I do like I Quit matches. I do think it's fun. This one was just annoying to watch because like especially at the start, like just be after every attack at the start, it's like it's Jack going, "Do you quit? Do you quit?" It's like, dude, you just hit him once. It's like,
Malcolm, you want to talk about the finish, or shall I?
I'll let you do that.
So there's a bit of a dusty finish, I guess, where basically Zeb Coulter throws in the towel, and for a hot second it's like, well, Ricardo Rodriguez threw in the towel, so Swagger's the winner, when that's not how an I Quit match works. It's like, if it were a towel match like Survivor Series 94, then sure, you can win that way. But this was just explicitly said, the man must say, I quit. That's it. And then they have to do this whole instant replay thing. There's another referee that comes out. Swagger and Coulter are like, I can't believe that didn't work. And I'm just like, this is terrible. I hate this. And then Del Rio hits one cross arm breaker on him, and that's it. Like, that's it. And I'm just sitting there like, who thought this was a good idea? I need names.
Yeah, look, I will say if this was a standard match or a towel match, I actually like the idea of the refs instant replay bit. I'm not gonna lie, like there's a lot of matches there's like that had these controversial finishes that could have really helped having another ref going, no, look, let's check the replay and let's do that. But I know it's one of those ones that I get it. Like you can't really do that all the time because otherwise it'll get too overused. But yeah, but for this match specifically, it was really bizarre. It was entertaining. I was entertained by it, but it was just
like
bizarre.
in the wrong kind of way, like the so bad it's good kind of way.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's one of those ones like the match itself was not the greatest, like because um because I mean, especially just with the whole annoyance, like asking after it, like you would hit him with a chair, like, do you quit? Like, you hit me for chair. I'm not going. I'm not ready to quit. But what are your thoughts about the actual match, Jacob?
It was weird. Like I mean, it wasn't the all-time worst. I just had a thought. I think this was just after Dolph Ziggler got a concussion from
Yeah.
So I think this must have been either Ziggler versus Del Rio or Ziggler versus Swagger, but then Ziggler got a legitimate concussion, and that couldn't happen for very obvious reasons. So they had to pivot to this, which, I mean, good on them for holding Ziggler back. I mean, you know, concussions are no joke, so good on them for doing that. But I don't know, this didn't need to be an I Quit match. Like that should be saved for something serious. And like, this just was not anywhere near as serious as it should have been.
Yeah, no, they did actually mention, I'm pretty sure that throughout this match, Lamar Cole did mention about Dolph Ziggler having a concussion at one point. Whether it was after the AJ Lee backstage segment or throughout this match, I'm not too sure, but it was what it was. Next up, like we had a backstage segment with Josh Matthews interviewing Ryback, who claims that Cena is a liar and he'll make him sort of that his whole hustle, loyalty, respect things like is false, and he'll prove it by making him not stand up for the 10 count last man standing match. We'll get to that match. But next up we had the Shield, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins versus Team Hell No, which is Kane and Daniel Bryan. Which to this day I still think is a fun pairing. Like it's one of those ones like it may have been a thrown together team. It was still an entertaining team, and it was a tornado tag team match for the tag team titles, and yeah, the match itself was I really enjoyed the match. Like anytime you got Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins on the same side, or even against each other, I'll always check in. And Ken and Daniel Bryan, I've always think it was fun. I will say it's funny watching rewatching NXT and then going into this because like Daniel Bryan suddenly grows a hot shit ton of hairs. It's like in the span of a couple of years, which is crazy. But the match itself, it was fun. Like you had all the usual things, and there was definitely some moments where I thought that Team Hell No was going to take it out, but in the end, the Shield prevailed. And I did like the shot at the end with the Shield holding up all of their titles together. And, so it was a good match. But Jacob, what did you think of the Shield versus Team Hell No?
Yeah, this one was really good. I did enjoy it. Dan Bryan's Dan Bryan, Bryan Danielson, call him whatever you want. He's just he's one of the best, like one of the best to ever do it. Like just and this is not necessarily, and just you can just see to your point about Team Hell No. Like I remember on the do you remember the JBL and Cole show, Malcolm? Did you ever see that or hear about that?
I think I did watch it. I did watch it.
Like I remember Daniel Bryan was the man of wrestling excellence, the Dazzler, and like he and Kane were doing things, and I'm just like it was great, and it just showed that like Daniel Bryan was not just the guy from Ring of Honor. Like he could wrestle, but he was incredibly versatile, and that whole Team Hell No run, I think, gave him more shelf life than he may have otherwise had, because if it weren't for Team Hell No, we wouldn't have gotten the Yes movement, because shortly after they broke up, he got the rocket strapped to him, even if the company didn't necessarily want to put the rocket on him. But that's another story for a whole nother time. This match was really good. Like I'll always have nothing but respect for Seth Rollins, and like it's strange. Like Roman Reigns is so much the tribal chief nowadays. Similar with Jon Moxley, they've come so far. Like seeing him here, I'm just like, I'm looking at just another time, like another world. And I just remember they tried so hard to make Roman Reigns like the guy, like by just look, he's got color on his flak vest now. Cheer for him. When in reality, he had to eschew all of that and just let him be himself. And I mean, history has shown that was the right call. But match itself was very good. Seeing Dean with the U.S. title and Seth and Roman with their tag titles is a really cool image. I think, like with three talents like that, you couldn't strap them up fast enough. I couldn't remember where it was, but I think there was someone saying they did it too fast. I'm like, when you have a stable with Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, you don't put titles on them now, you put them on them yesterday. So in a rare moment of we need to push these guys, they actually pushed these guys. So I have no complaints about that whatsoever.
Yeah, and I will say if Dean Ambrose wasn't in AEW, I could see the Shield being inducted into the Hall of Fame someday, like as a group.
And I don't know how well this is going to go over, but I think he's going to go back one day, even if it's
Yeah,
just for a one-off. The Shield are absolute Hall of Famers, make no mistake. Even if it's
yeah,
just for the ceremony, I think he's going to go back.
yeah. But moving on, we've got Randy Orton versus Big Show in an Extreme Rules match. And for an Extreme Rules match, it wasn't that extreme,
No,
but I mean, that being said, but then again, in this era with Extreme Rules matches, it's pretty much the standard you would kind of expect those as well. Um, but that I still really enjoyed the match. I still thought it was like Randy Orton can put on a good match, like against anyone. I don't exactly remember why Randy Orton and Big Show are feuding at this point of time,
I
but
I do remember. It's a bit of a story, but at Mania that year, Sheamus, Orton, and Big Show teamed up against the Shield, and they lost.
oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah,
There was a kerfuffle in mid-match where Big Show turned. What a shock! And Randy Orton was like, "Yeah, you turned on us. I stand on business now." And that was more or less the reason why.
that's right. I now remember that, but Jacob, what did you think of Randy Orton versus Big Show?
This was fine. I feel like it doesn't really help things either, and I had to look it up for certain. They do this finish where Randy Orton punts the Big Show. They do this again at Survivor Series later on that year, with like the dynamics completely reversed. So I was just sitting there thinking to myself, and they were just feuding all year, weren't they? And like, no wonder this was like the dark times. And this is
Yeah,
nothing against Randy Orton necessarily. It just like Big Show just got annoying with like cheer for him, boo for him, cheer for him, boo for him. And I'm sure Paul White's a very nice man, but it just wow, it got bad.
yeah, yeah. There's one of those ones like there's earlier a few weeks ago talked about like the first time they made Big Show face by having him come out with this random Hulk Hogan gimmick.
The showster.
Yep. But next up we had John Cena versus Ryback in a last man standing match, which ended ended in a no contest. And
Tragically.
yeah. And this is one of those ones like I'm glad that after they skipped Sheffield exiled from Nexus that he came back with a new gimmick that freshened him up. Because there's only so much as like yep, what to do. It would go on.
Bless William Regal for putting up with that.
Yeah. But and I actually really enjoyed his Ryback gimmick. Like I randomly watch him on TikTok every now and then when I see him go live. Whether he's shitting on WWE for certain booking decisions they've made or whatnot, um, but I've always enjoyed him as a wrestler. This is and I was really enjoying this match up to, and I kind of wish it had a definitive ending, but then again, I think John Cena versus Ryback kind of went on for a little bit after this as well. But Jay, what do you think of John Cena versus Ryback?
This was fine. It was really getting going. I mean, John Cena and Last Man Standing or I Quit matches is honestly quite solid. Like Royal Rumble '07 with Umaga was Last Man Standing, and that match was phenomenal. I'll throw his match with Randy Orton at Breaking Point in an I Quit match. Like I'll throw the Last Man and Iron Man I Quit matches together. I think they're kind of similar to me, but what I'm trying to go for is that John Cena in like these kinds of matches rarely misses, and I think this is one of them. I was disappointed by the finish. I mean, granted, there are worse finishes you could have done. I mean, like spearing a man through an LED board is definitely something to do where you're like, yeah, you're not walking away from that. It did kind of remind me of when Batista and Undertaker did the same thing at Backlash '07, where Batista speared the Undertaker off the stage and through like the electrical equipment. I remember that. It was like they speared him and then like the whole truss fell on top of them. I remember that distinctly. So it's been done, but I thought the match was solid. They would have an even better match at Payback the next month, where it was 3 stages of hell. It was lumberjack match, tables match, and an ambulance match. And I thought that match was really good.
And then moving on to the last match that we have on the card, we have Brock Lesnar versus Triple H in a steel cage match. It was a decent match. Like, I like, look, say what you want about Brock Lesnar. Like, I know a lot of people want him to return for reasons that I don't really want to get into big details about here. He's probably not coming back, at least anytime soon. But just like Benoit, like he's still a pretty decent wrestler, and like he still could put on some really good matches. And this was a really good match. And one of my big gripes is this is like, I hate that when they have the booking of a steel cage match ending in a damn pin. Why not just make it Hell in a Sandwich if that's the way you want to finish it? But it's one of those ones that is what it is. Like, I don't even know if there was. I don't even know if it needed to be a steel cage match. Personally, it's like, I don't think there was anyone interfering. Like, there was any fear. Because generally they do steel cage matches with people factions where they don't want anyone to interfere. Which people still end up doing it anyway. But Jacob, what do you think of Brock Lesnar versus Triple H?
This was my favorite match on the show. It wasn't particularly outstanding, but I thought Brock did have his working boots on. He did a whole thing with his leg that I actually thought was pretty good. Like, I mean, can't go wrong with Paul Heyman there. Crazy to think that this was like Paul Heyman was just under a year back because he left for a while and then he came back basically to be like Brock Lesnar's advocate. And I mean, he's still there. He's with Roman Reigns now, but there was a long time where like he just wasn't there. And now he's like, you can't go a week on TV without seeing him. So it's crazy to think that in 2013 he had just come back like 6 months prior. But I did enjoy the match. This was actually the last match of their trilogy, I guess. It was SummerSlam 2012, where Brock, air quotes, broke Triple H's arm with the Kimura lock. Then they had a match at Mania 29, which I thought was their best one. And then they had this, which was pretty good. I kind of agree with you. This could have been a regular match and it would have been fine. But I feel like there was enough cage elements to be like, okay, I think that was fine enough. Triple H has had better cage matches. I'll say Ric Flair from Taboo Tuesday 05 as an example. But like this was overall a pretty meh to good show, and this was one of the better matches.
But one segment I like to do, if you go back in time and change a booking decision from the pay-per-view, what would you do, Jacob?
That's interesting. I think I would have removed the I Quit match stipulation from Del Rio Swagger, or maybe do something like a 2 out of 3 falls match, something like that. Like Swagger be like, Like, I'll be the only one to beat you not once but twice. Do something like that. It didn't need to be an I Quit match. Like, do something else besides that. I would change that stipulation. That's the biggest sore thumb for me.
Yeah. And for me, like it would be something similar, but it would be for Brock Lesnar Triple H. I would change it to maybe a Hell in a Cell match, because you could still have the cage elements that they got in this match, and all that. But then that it would also take out the whole issue of having a pin as well. You can have a pin in the Hell in a Cell match. It's just weird to have it in a steel cage match. Oh, I get why they do that as well. It's not too much of a gripe for me, but
I mean,
Jacob,
I don't want to be one of those guys, but I find it bizarre that like the cage stipulation in WWE is still around when Hell in a Cell is like clearly superior, at least in my
yeah,
opinion. Like AEW has done way better cage matches fairly recently, where like WWE has done a few cage matches where like just regular cage matches, and I'm just like, why? Like, you got Hell in a Cell, you even got War Games now. So the single cage, like, why are we still doing that? I don't know. It's just a me thing.
yeah. But Jacob, what would you rate the pay per view out of 5 stars?
I'll go 2 stars. I don't think I'm being too harsh with that.
Yeah. For me, I'm probably a little bit nicer. I'm probably a little bit. I enjoy it a little bit more than you, because I went 3 stars. I had a lot of fun for a lot of the pay per view. Some of the matches I didn't like as much, but I still thought they were fun with the way they were presented in that. But with that, it's time to spin the wheel to see what the next pay per view we'll be covering is. Which may or may not be next week, but it'll depend on if I have to do another mulligan. Well, we're not going to be doing a mulligan. It's going to be jumping ahead a couple years to Extreme Rules 2015.
Oh, okay. What is that show? I could swear, like, why am I blank? Okay, I'm looking it up because I
I
swear
was
I.
already. So we've got Dean
Like, I.
Ambrose versus Luke Harper, Dolph Ziggler and Sheamus in a kiss me ass match.
Oh God, that's the Kiss Me Arse match. I was like, that's that one. Uh, Rollins and Orton in a cage. Reigns and Big Show in another Last Man Standing match. Cena and Rusev in a Russian chain match. I remember that being good. So this is a
Yeah,
case of the New Day start their tag title run on this show. So in certain cases, it's like history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
yeah, yeah. It's like, just looking at it, it's like a lot of the same people that was on this one is we're going to see again. It's like Seth Rollins is up against Randy Orton this time. um, and we've actually got a Divas match on the show. But so yeah, sounds like it's going to be fun. But we're going to be going to Extreme Rules 2015 next week. Also next week, still got to narrow down a date, as we'll have a special episode where Jacob's going to be back for that. We're also going to be have Richie joining us, talking about NXT season, the championship seasons. Primarily talking about seasons 1 to 4, but we will talk a little bit about season 5, because that's kind of where they started test running the whole NXT concept. Um, and But so yeah, that'll be fun. And that'll be next week. Um, and But yeah. So with that is the end of Spear from the Past for this week. Jacob, where can people find you online?
My YouTube channel at RyanCam20. I talk mostly movies there. I've been dipping my toes into reviewing some music. My friends Nick, Jacob, and Scott and I, we've been going through all of Nirvana's albums, which has been an interesting journey. So I've been doing that. I've been reviewing David Lynch's films with his fairly recent passing. That's been a bit of a trip, going through all the films of his that I've never seen. I've got Small Talk, a Smallville podcast every Tuesday, Talking Silence whenever we can nail down a date for that. I'm also in a ton of trivia places. I'm the last Full Metal trivia champion, so shout out to Malcolm, rest in peace to Full Metal Trivia. So yeah, if you haven't checked me out, please do.
And you can find me on Tape Productions hosting Rankum every week. Next week we'll be talking about the top 12 best actor Oscar best actor winners. Should be a lot of fun. You can also find me on Spear from the Past, talking about Extreme Rules 2015 and NXT. And you can also find me popping here and there, whether it's Movie Hero Network or other places. But until next time, that is the end of Spear from the Past this week, and we'll see you next time.
Titus had a very busy week here in Saudi Arabia. He's had dinner with many princes and very important